I broke down my neighbor's door. Now she left me a key and said, "So you don't have to next time." I did not even know her name the night I broke her door down. All I knew was that my quiet neighbor, the one who never made a sound, suddenly went silent in the wrong way. And once I heard that heavy thud through the wall, I could not sit still and pretend it was none of my business. My name is Ryan. I am 25, and I live in a small apartment complex just outside Seattle, Washington. It is not fancy, but it is quiet, and that is all I wanted when I moved here. Before this, I had shared a noisy place downtown with two roommates who never slept and never cleaned. After a year of late parties, slammed doors, and my stuff getting borrowed, I packed my bags and left. I promised myself that this time my life would be simple. I work at a logistics warehouse. I move boxes, check barcodes, drive a pallet jack around for 8 hours. It is hard work, but it is honest. I get home tired, make black coffee if I need to stay awake, throw on a show, and call it a day. No real social life. No girlfriend. I had one a while back, but it ended messy enough that I decided I was better off alone for a while. Simple is easier. You cannot get hurt if no one is close enough to touch you. The apartment next to mine was part of what sold me on this place. It was always quiet. No music bleeding through the walls. No loud arguments or stomping. Sometimes, I would hear the soft click of heels in the hallway, or catch a whiff of perfume in the elevator, but that was it. I had seen her maybe 5 times before that night. My neighbor. She was older than me. Late 30s, maybe early 40s. Dark hair always pulled back. Clothes clean and sharp like she was on her way to a meeting, even if it was Sunday morning. She carried herself like someone who knew where she was going and did not need help from anyone. We never really talked. A nod in the hallway. A polite smile in the lobby. One time in the elevator she said, "Long day," when she saw my work shirt, and I just laughed and said, "Every day." That was as deep as it went. She was just the neighbor. That was enough, until that night. It was a Tuesday. It had been raining all day, the way only Seattle can rain, slow at first, then steady, like the sky had nothing better to do. By the time I got home, my hoodie was soaked through. I kicked off my shoes, made a quick dinner, and collapsed on the couch with some crime show playing low on the TV. I liked the sound in the background, not too loud, just enough to fill the space. I was half asleep when I heard the first sound, a dull thump from the wall to my right, the one that connected to her living room. I frowned, paused the TV, and listened. The rain tapped on the window. Pipes hummed somewhere in the building. Then came the second noise. This one was louder, sharper, not like something falling from a shelf, more like a heavy weight hitting the floor. My stomach tightened. I sat up, now fully awake. I stared at the wall like it could talk. Probably nothing, I told myself. Maybe she dropped a box. Maybe a chair tipped over. Everyone drops stuff. Then the third sound came. A deep, flat thud, followed by something that sounded like a weak scrape. Then, silence. The kind of silence that does not feel empty. It feels wrong. I stood up before my brain could talk me out of it. I grabbed my phone, shoved my feet into my sneakers, and stepped into the hallway. The air out there was cooler, smelling faintly of cleaning spray and damp carpet. Her door was closed. Of course it was. A thin line of light glowed under the bottom, flickering like a lamp had been knocked sideways. I knocked. One time, normal. "Hey," I called. "Everything okay in there?" No answer. I knocked again, harder. "Ma'am, you all right?" Still nothing. No footsteps, no voice. Just rain and the quiet hum of the building. My chest was pounding now. I tried the handle. It did not budge. Locked. For a second I stood there with my hand on the knob, arguing with myself. Call 911. Go back inside. It is none of your business. You are overreacting. Then I remembered that sound, that heavy final thud, and the way the light under the door kept shaking like something had hit it on the way down. I took 2 steps back, swallowed, and braced my shoulder. Last chance. I said, more to myself than to her. You sure you do not want to answer? Nothing. So I did it. I ran my shoulder into the door. Pain shot through my arm. The wood groaned but held. I cursed under my breath, backed up again, and hit it a second time. The cheap frame cracked. The latch gave way. The door swung open with a sharp crack of splintered wood. Her apartment was half dark. A floor lamp lay on its side in the middle of the living room, the bulb flickering weakly. Papers were scattered across the rug. A mug lay broken near the coffee table, tea or coffee staining the floor. And she was there, on the ground. She was lying on her side, one arm tucked under her, the other reaching halfway out like she had tried to catch herself and missed. Her face was pale, her lips parted. Her eyes were open but not really focused. Her chest rose and fell in shallow, uneven breaths. "Hey," I said, dropping to my knees beside her. "Hey, can you hear me?" Her gaze shifted slowly, like it took effort to find me. When her eyes met mine, something in my chest pulled tight. There was fear there, sure, but something else too. Something tired and fragile. "Do not move," I said, trying to remember what I knew about first aid. "You are okay. I am here. I am calling an ambulance." I fumbled with my phone, fingers clumsy on the screen as I dialed 911. I gave them the address, told them what I saw, tried to keep my voice steady. The operator told me help was on the way, and to stay with her. I took her hand then without really thinking. Her skin was cold and damp. "You are all right," I said. "Help is coming." Her fingers twitched, curling weakly around mine. Her lips moved. I leaned closer to hear. "Do not leave," she whispered, voice rough and thin. "I hate that feeling." My throat closed. "I am not leaving," I said. "I promise, I am right here." We stayed like that. Me kneeling on the floor of a woman's apartment I barely knew, holding her hand while the rain pounded outside and sirens wailed somewhere far away. I did not know her story. I did not know why she lived alone, why she looked so tired even when she was dressed sharp in the elevator. I did not know why her words hit so hard. I just knew this. I had broken down her door to get in. I did not realize yet that the hard part would be finding a way to walk back out. The sirens got closer fast. By the time I heard them pull into the lot, my legs were starting to go numb from kneeling on the floor. Her hand was still in mine, colder now, but the grip a little stronger than before. "You hanging in there?" I asked. Her eyes fluttered, then focused on me again. There was a tiny crease between her brows, like she was trying to figure out why I was there at all. "Do not," she whispered, the words barely coming out. "Let them leave me alone." My chest tightened. "They will not," I said. "I will be there, okay? I am not going anywhere." The front door to her apartment banged open wider as the paramedics rushed in, boots loud on the hardwood. One of them, a woman with a tight braid and a calm face, dropped to a knee beside us. "What have we got?" she asked. I moved back just enough to give them space, but stayed close. "Found her like this," I said. She hit the floor hard, breathing but weak. She was kind of out of it. Said she felt weird. I heard the thud through my wall. They worked fast. Blood pressure cuff, oxygen mask. Questions about allergies and medication. She answered some, voice muffled, trailing off. When she could not, I filled in what little I knew, which was not much. "Are you family?" the paramedic asked, glancing at me as they lifted her onto a stretcher. "Neighbor," I said. The word suddenly felt too small. They wheeled her out. As they did, her head turned and her eyes found me again, hazy but locked in. "You are coming," she said. A statement, not a question. Her voice was weak, but there was force behind it. "Yeah," I said, "I am right behind you." I followed them down the stairs, through the lobby, into the wet night. The rain soaked my hoodie again in seconds, but I barely felt it. They loaded her into the ambulance. The back doors slammed shut, and the paramedic turned to me. "You can drive behind us," she said. "Emergency room at St. Vincent's. They will give you an update once we get her stable." Quote, The ride to the hospital was a blur of red lights, wet streets, and my heartbeat in my ears. I should have felt stupid. This woman was practically a stranger. Most people would have gone back to their show and pretended they heard nothing. But her voice, that whisper, kept playing in my head. Do not leave. I hate that feeling. I knew that feeling. Different reasons, same hollow echo. The waiting room at St. Vincent's was cold and bright. Blue chairs, white walls, a TV in the corner playing the news on mute. I checked in at the front desk, gave them her apartment number, explained that I was the guy next door who broke the door down. They took my name and told me to sit. So I did. For a long time stretched. Nurses rushed in and out. People came and went. A kid with a broken wrist. A man clutching his chest. A woman crying quietly in the corner. I sat there with my damp hoodie, my hands still smelling faintly like her apartment. Lemon cleaner, and something softer I could not name. Around 3 in the morning, a nurse finally came over to me. She had short hair and kind eyes. "You are here for the woman from the apartments on Pine Ridge?" she asked. "Yeah," I said, jumping to my feet. "How is she?" "She is stable," the nurse said. "Severe dehydration and low blood pressure. She had a fever, likely ignored it for too long. Her body crashed. We are keeping her overnight for fluids and observation." Relief hit me so hard I had to sit back down. "Can I see her?" I asked. "She is sleeping now," the nurse said. Visiting hours start in the morning, but she was awake earlier, asked if the guy who broke down my door was still here. I huffed a short laugh, then shook my head. "Yeah," I said, "that was me." "Well," the nurse said, "she did not hate it as much as you think. Come back tomorrow. She will be glad you did." I left just before dawn. The sky, a pale blue smear over the city. The rain had slowed to a mist, the kind that hangs in the air and makes everything feel softer. Back at the complex, I walked past her apartment. The door was half hanging off the frame, splintered where the lock used to be. I had shoved a dining chair under the knob before I left, a weak attempt to keep it from swinging open. "Sorry," I muttered to the empty space. "I will fix you later." My own apartment felt wrong when I stepped inside. The TV was still paused on the same scene as before. My coffee mug sat on the table, a cold ring at the bottom. Everything looked like I had only stepped out for a second, but I felt different, like the night had stretched something open in me. I slept for a few hours, dreams full of flickering lamps and hospital beeps, and woke up around 10. After a quick shower and a strong cup of coffee, I grabbed my keys and headed out again. On impulse, I stopped at the corner store and bought a small bag of fruit. Apples. Oranges. Something that felt less like a stranger showing up empty-handed. The hospital smelled like disinfectant and coffee. I checked in, got her room number, and rode the elevator up to the 3rd floor. My stomach twisted in a weird, nervous knot as I walked down the hall. Her door was open a crack. I knocked gently on the frame. "Come in," a tired voice said. I stepped inside. She was sitting up in bed, propped against white pillows, a thin blanket over her legs. An IV line was taped to her hand, clear fluid dripping slowly into her vein. Her hair was down now, darker and softer against her shoulders. She wore no makeup, and there were shadows under her eyes, but she looked more alive than she had on the floor, less colorless, more here. She watched me for a second, like she was putting together who I was again. "Hey," I said, lifting the small bag awkwardly. "Brought fruit. Not sure if they will let you eat it, but it felt less weird than showing up empty-handed." Her lips curved into a small smile. "You did not have to come," she said. "Or break my door, or bring apples." "I think I did," I said. "At least the door part. The thud was not exactly optional." Her smile widened a little. It changed her whole face, made her look younger somehow, softer. "I am Sienna," she said, "in case you decide to stop calling me my neighbor in your head." I laughed. "Ryan," I said, "though I think you already know that." She nodded toward the chair by the bed. "Sit," she said. "You look more tired than I feel." I sat. Suddenly, I had no idea what to do with my hands. I set the fruit down on the rolling table and cleared my throat. The nurse said it was dehydration. I said, "You all right now?" "Getting there," she said. "Apparently living on coffee and protein bars is not a great long-term plan." Who knew? There was dry humor in her voice, but underneath it I heard something else. Shame. Frustration. "You live alone?" I asked, keeping my tone light. "Yeah," she said. "It was just a flu at first. I thought I could push through it. Work, sleep, repeat. Then everything went sideways." She glanced at her IV line. "I am not used to my body giving up on me," she added, "or someone kicking in my door because of it." "You did not exactly answer when I knocked," I said. She looked down at her hands, fingers twisting the edge of the blanket. "I heard you," she said quietly. "I remember the knocking. Then I tried to move, and it felt like the room was underwater. I thought, if he leaves, I might not wake up." She paused, then looked at me again. "So thanks for not leaving." I swallowed. Her words hit deeper than I expected. "Yeah," I said softly, "anytime." We talked a bit more, about nothing huge, her job, mine, how long we had both lived in the building without really seeing each other. She told me she designed office interiors for tech companies. Open spaces, neutral colors, places that looked calm even when people inside were falling apart. "That sounds fitting," I said. "You calling me a mess?" she asked, one eyebrow lifting. "Calling you good at hiding it," I said. She held my gaze for a moment, then shook her head with a small smile. "You might be right," she said. A nurse came in to check her vitals and adjust the drip. I took that as my cue to stand. "I should go," I said. "Let you rest. I will get someone to fix your door before you get home, or at least tape it back together." "You do not have to do that," she said. "I know," I said, "but I will." I reached the doorway, then heard her say my name, Ryan. I turned. Her eyes were steady on mine now. "No joking. No mask." "I forgot what it feels like to have someone worry," she said. "I am a little out of practice, so if I seem weird, that is why." "You are not weird," I said. "Just out of practice. I can work with that." She exhaled. It sounded almost like a laugh. "See you when I get back," she said. "Yeah," I replied. "You will." As I walked down the hallway, I felt something heavy and warm settle in my chest. She was not just the neighbor anymore, and I knew, even then, that my life was not going to stay simple much longer. Sienna came home 2 days later. I heard the elevator ding in the hallway, then the sound of her suitcase wheels rolling over the carpet. I opened my door at the same time she reached hers. She stopped when she saw me, just for a second, like she was surprised I was exactly where she left me. She was back in her sharp version. Dark jeans, fitted coat, ankle boots, hair pulled back in a low ponytail. But the hospital softness was still there in her eyes. A little less guarded, a little more human. "Hey," I said. "Welcome back." "Hey," she answered. "Door seems to be standing this time." I glanced at the new frame. I had called the building guy and helped him install a fresh door and lock that morning. It was solid, no cracks, no splinters. I was weirdly proud of it. "Yeah," I said. "Figured your landlord would not want you living with a crime scene entrance. You have a new lock, too. Stronger one." She slid the key into the deadbolt, tested it, then looked at me. "You really did not have to," she said. "I know," I said. "But if I left it, I would stare at the broken frame every day and think about you on the floor. That is not a picture I wanted stuck in my head." Her expression shifted at that. Her eyes softened, the corners of her mouth lifting just a little. "Well," she said, "thank you for ruining my door and then making it better than before." "Special skill," I said. "Destroy, then fix." She shook her head, amused, and pushed her door open. For a second, I thought that was it. She would go inside. I would go back to my place. We would drift into some strange new version of neighbors. Then she hesitated. Her hand stayed on the doorknob, and she turned back. "You want coffee?" she asked. "I am not sure if I am supposed to have it yet, but I am tired of hospital tea, and you look like you never say no to caffeine." "True," I said, "and I make a mean coffee, but I will let you prove yourself." She stepped aside, letting me in. It felt strange walking through the doorway now that it was whole again, like crossing a line I had already broken once, but in a different way. Her apartment looked the same as the first night, clean, quiet, everything in its place. The lamp that had fallen was standing tall again. The broken mug was gone. There was a faint smell of lemon cleaner and something warm underneath, maybe vanilla or whatever candle she used. "Sit," she said, pointing toward the small dining table. "Do not worry. Gravity and I are on speaking terms again." I sat, watching her move around the kitchen. She was slower than before, careful. There was a small plastic bottle of pills near the sink, a folded set of discharge instructions on the counter. "You living alone always been your thing?" I asked, just to cut through the quiet. "For the past 5 years," she said, filling the kettle. "Before that, I lived with a man who could be in the same room and still make me feel alone, so this was an upgrade." She said it like a joke, but the words landed heavy. "Divorce?" I asked gently. She nodded, not looking at me. "Yeah, no kids. Just 2 people who started out as a team and ended up as strangers who shared a Netflix account." The kettle started to hum. She poured water over the grounds in a small French press. "You?" she asked. "Always flying solo?" I leaned back in the chair. "Had a girlfriend for a couple years," I said. "We tried to make it work, but we wanted different things." She liked the city noise. I liked sleep and not having strangers on my couch at 3 in the morning. "Sounds like a real clash of values," Sienna said dryly. "She wanted to feel like she was in a movie," I said. "I wanted to feel like I was not being slowly drained, so we called it." Sienna brought the 2 mugs to the table and sat across from me. Up close in the daylight, I could see the faint, tired lines at the corners of her eyes. They did not make her look old. They just told me she had lived more life than I had. "You are young to be so tired of people," she said. "You are not that much older," I replied. Her eyebrow lifted. "You do not even know how old I am." "Guess," I said. She leaned back in her chair, studying me. "You are what, 25? She asked. "Got it in 1, I said. "Warehouse guys are very predictable." She smiled a little. "I am 40, she said. "Which is not ancient, but in case you were wondering why the nurses kept calling me ma'am and you, hon, there you go." "40 looks good on you," I said, then realized how that sounded. "I mean, you look good for, you know what, I am going to stop talking." She laughed, a real one this time, not just a polite breath. "Relax," she said. "I am not going to file an HR complaint." We sipped our coffee. It was quiet, but it did not feel empty. The rain outside had slowed to a light mist. People came and went in the parking lot below. "You scared me," I said finally, staring at the steam from my mug. "That night, on the floor, I thought you were dying." It did something to my heart I did not expect. She was quiet for a moment. "I scared myself," she admitted. "I have always been proud of handling things alone. But lying there, trying to move and not being able to, I realized how stupid that pride can be." She looked directly at me then. "And then you crashed through my door like some stubborn, confused hero in work boots," she said. I did not know whether to be mad or grateful. "Which did you land on?" I asked. She smiled softly. "I am leaning heavily toward grateful," she said. "We fell into a pattern after that day. Not all at once. Slow. Just like the way the rain starts before it becomes a full storm. Sometimes she would knock on my door with a question about the building, or a jar she could not open. Sometimes I would check in with an excuse, like bringing her mail or asking if her Wi-Fi was down too. Every time, the conversations got a little longer, the space between us got a little smaller. I learned she liked to work late, sketching layouts and color palettes at her dining table with jazz playing low on a Bluetooth speaker. I learned she hated the sound of heavy footsteps above her and slept with earplugs because of the couple on the 4th floor. I learned she took long walks on weekends just to hear something other than her own thoughts. She learned that I hated mornings and loved late-night runs under streetlights. That I was taking online classes for supply chain management because I was tired of just hauling boxes instead of planning where they went. That I sometimes left the TV on just so the silence would not get too big. One rainy Friday, about a week after she came home, there was another storm. Not as bad as the first one, but loud enough that the wind rattled my windows. I was sitting on my couch, pretending to watch some comedy, when I noticed light under her door again. This time, no thud. Just a thin strip of yellow that had not moved for hours. I checked the time. Almost midnight. My chest did that tight twist again. Logic said she was fine. She was on meds. She had instructions. She was not alone because I knew she knew I was right next door. But logic did not always win with me. Before I could talk myself out of it, I grabbed a hoodie and stepped into the hall. I told myself I would just listen at the door, make sure she was moving, breathing, alive. If I heard her voice, I would go back. I reached her apartment. The light was still there, still, no sound. I lifted my hand and knocked, soft at first. Nothing. I knocked louder. Sienna, it's Ryan. There was a pause, maybe 3 seconds long, maybe 30. Then I heard footsteps, slow ones. The lock clicked. The door opened a crack. She stood there in an oversized t-shirt and leggings, hair loose around her shoulders. No sharp coat, no makeup, no armor. Her eyes were a little puffy like she had been crying or maybe just tired. "Hey," she said, voice low. "Did I wake you?" "No," I said. "I was just checking. You have trauma around closed doors now, remember?" A small smile tugged at her mouth. "I am okay," she said. "Just could not sleep. Storm makes everything feel louder inside here." She hesitated. Her hand stayed on the door, but she did not close it. "Do you want to come in?" she asked quietly. "Just for a bit. I was making tea. It is weird drinking it alone tonight." My heart did that thing again. I knew this was not a date. It was not anything official. It was just tea in a quiet apartment during a storm. But the way she looked at me when she asked the question made it more. Like she did not want me to leave. "Yeah," I said. "I will come in." I stepped over the spot where I had broken her door before, and the storm outside faded behind us. Her apartment felt different that night, not because anything had changed, but because of how I walked into it. The first time I stepped through her door, it was broken, and I was full of panic. This time it was open by choice, and I was full of something I could not name. The storm outside pressed against the windows. Rain streaked the glass. The wind rattled the balcony rail. Inside, it was warm and soft, the quiet broken only by the low whistle of the kettle on the stove. "Make yourself at home," Sienna said, moving toward the kitchen. "There is tea. It is not hospital grade, I promise." I sat at the end of the sofa, feeling a little out of place in my hoodie and worn jeans. Her apartment always looked like a magazine. Simple, calm colors, clean lines, a blanket folded over the back of the couch, a small stack of design magazines on the coffee table. It matched her, put together on the outside, layers underneath. She came back with 2 mugs, steam curling up in the dim light. She handed me one and sat on the other end of the couch, pulling her legs up under her. Her t-shirt slipped a little at the shoulder, showing a thin line of pale skin. I looked away fast, then back at her face. "Chamomile," she said. "Doctor ordered. It is not coffee, but we can pretend." I took a sip. It was warm and a little sweet. The heat spread through my chest. "You were crying," I said before I could stop myself. "Earlier, before I knocked." She stared at the mug for a second. "Storms get to me," she said after a moment. "They make the world feel small. And my head gets loud when the world gets small." "Loud how?" I asked. She exhaled slowly. "Memories," she said. "Bad nights. Empty rooms. Times I needed someone and no one came. You know. The usual greatest hits." She tried to smile, but it did not quite reach her eyes. "I am sorry," I said. "You do not have to tell me." "I know," she said, "but I want to. That is the scary part." She looked at me then, really looked, like she was checking if I was strong enough to hold what she was about to hand me. "My ex," she said. "He was charming at first, smart, funny. He lit up every room, everyone loved him, I did too, but he was never really there, not when it mattered." She sipped her tea. "There was one night," she went on, "I got sick. Fever, everything spinning. I called him. He said he would be there. He never came. I lay on the bathroom floor for hours, listening for the door, and it never opened." She shook her head. "That is the feeling I hate," she said softly. "Waiting for someone who is not coming. The door not opening. That is why I said that to you. On the floor. At the hospital. I did not want to feel that again. We were both quiet. I could hear the storm pushing against the glass. I could hear her breathing. I could hear my own heart. I get that, I said finally. Not in the same way, but I know what it is like to think you are better off alone, then realize alone can turn on you. She raised an eyebrow. You? She asked. Mr. Quiet Apartment, no drama, no girlfriend. What do you know about that? More than you think, I said. I told her about my last relationship. How I had stayed in that too loud downtown place longer than I should have, because leaving meant admitting I could not fix it. How I would sit on my own bed in a crowded apartment and feel like no one would notice if I disappeared. I left before I hit the floor, I said, but I came close. In my head, at least. She watched me with that steady, sharp gaze. So you moved here, she said, to live next to a woman who cannot take her own advice and almost passes out in front of a bookshelf. Exactly, I said. Very smart life plan. She smiled. The joke softened the heaviness a little, but it did not erase it. I am sorry you went through that, she said. Same, I said. For you. The rain grew heavier again, drumming a little harder on the windows. Sienna set her mug down on the table and leaned back into the sofa. She let her head rest against the cushion and closed her eyes for a second. You know what scares me the most? She asked. It is not that I fell. It is how normal it felt to do it alone. How easy it was to ignore myself until my body gave up. I shifted closer without really deciding to. Not too close, just enough that my knee almost brushed hers. You are not alone now, I said quietly. At least not in the way you were. Her eyes opened. She turned her head to look at me. The space between us felt charged, like those few inches of air were full of static. You say that like you plan on staying, she said. I broke down your door, I said. Kinda committed now. She laughed once, a small sound, then shook her head. You did more than that, she said. You came to the hospital. You fixed my door. You bring stupid fruit to my room. You knock when you do not hear anything. You show up. She looked down at her hands for a second, then back at me. Ryan, she said, her voice steady but soft. You are 25. You should be out with friends or doing whatever 25-year-olds do. Not babysitting your neighbor who forgot how to listen to her own body. I am not babysitting you, I said. I want to be here. My voice came out stronger than I expected, true in a way that surprised me. Her throat moved as she swallowed. You sure you know what you are saying? She asked. No, I said honestly, but I know how it feels. When I hear silence through that wall now, I listen. When I see your lights on too late, I notice. When I saw you at the hospital, I did not feel like a stranger. I felt like someone who needed you to be okay. She held my gaze. The air between us felt thin. My chest burned a little. Come here, she said quietly. I hesitated for half a second, then slid closer. Our knees touched. It was a small contact, but it felt huge. She reached up and let her hand rest on my forearm. Her fingers were cool from the tea mug. They squeezed lightly. Thank you, she said, for making it harder to stay invisible. You were never invisible, I said. You just had no one looking long enough. Her mouth trembled a little, then steadied. I like how you see me, she said. That is part of what scares me. I did not think. I just moved. Slowly, carefully, I turned my hand and laced my fingers with hers. She looked down at our hands, at the way they fit together, young and older, new and guarded. She did not pull away. We sat like that, side by side on our couch during a storm, holding hands like two people who had both spent too many nights in empty rooms. We did not kiss. We did not rush. We just stayed there and let the moment be real. At some point, the rain eased. The storm faded to a soft patter again. She let out a long breath and leaned her head lightly against my shoulder. My heart almost jumped out of my chest, but I did not move. I did not want to break whatever fragile thing had settled between us. Stay a bit, she said. Just until the storm passes. I sleep better when I know someone is on the other side of that wall, or the couch. I can do that, I said. So I did. We talked in low voices, about small things, movies we liked, music she played while she worked, the worst jobs we had. She told me about a small beach town she loved. I told her about the park where I ran on weekends. After a while she yawned, her body sinking a little deeper into the cushions. "You should get some sleep," I said. Dr. Warders, remember? "Bossy," she murmured, but stood up anyway. She walked me to the door, her hands sliding out of mine slowly like she did not want to let go. "Get home safe," she said. "Do not fall through your own floor." I smiled. "Good night, Sienna," I said. "Good night, Ryan," she answered. I stepped into the hall. She watched me for a second, then closed the door gently. I went back to my apartment, my chest full and tight at the same time. I lay on my couch staring at the ceiling, feeling the echo of her head on my shoulder and her fingers in mine. For the next couple of days, things settled into a new normal. We passed each other in the hall more often. She knocked twice to ask if I could open a stuck jar, and once to bring me a small container of soup she had made by accident in a batch too big for one person. I checked in without stupid excuses now. I did not pretend I was not thinking about her. Then one afternoon, about a week later, I came home from the warehouse to find something on my doormat. A small silver key on a simple keychain. No note at first. I picked it up, confused, then heard her door open. I looked up. Sienna stood there in jeans and a soft blue sweater, hair loose, bare feet on the hallway carpet. She looked calm, but there was a nervous light in her eyes. "You left this," I said, holding up the key. "I put it there," she said, "on purpose." I blinked. "To what?" I asked, though I already knew. "My place," she said. "It is a copy. I went to get one made this morning." She stepped closer, stopping just in front of me. The hallway was narrow. I could smell the faint scent of her shampoo, something clean and floral. "You do not have to take it," she said. "If this is too much, tell me. I will throw it away and we can go back to you, knocking like a normal neighbor." I looked at the key in my hand, then at her. At the woman who had once been just a quiet stranger in the elevator and was now the person I could not stop thinking about. "What does it mean?" I asked softly. She took a breath. "It means," she said, "that I am done pretending I like being unreachable. It means that if something happens, you do not have to break my door again. It means I trust you more than I have trusted anyone in a long time." She held my gaze. Her voice dropped, and the words came out steady and clear. "So you do not have to next time," she said. The hallway seemed to shrink around us. My fingers closed around the key. It felt heavier than it looked. "You sure about this?" I asked. "For the first time in years," she said. "Yes, I am." I slid the key into my pocket. It felt like sliding a new piece into place, in a life I had thought would stay simple and empty for a long time. "Then I will keep it," I said, "and I will use it if I need to. Or if you need me to." She smiled, slow, real, the kind of smile that showed she was letting me see all the parts she usually hid. "Good," she said. "I was hoping you would say that." For a moment we just stood there. Then she reached out and touched my arm, light at first, then a little firmer. "Also," she added, her voice softer now, "keys can mean more than emergencies. They can mean you are welcome, even when I am not falling down." My heart kicked up again. "I got that part," I said, smiling back. "Just making sure you did too." She rolled her eyes a little, but her cheeks were pink. "I did," she said. That night, I lay in my apartment, with the key on the table beside me where I could see it, a small silver thing, shining under the lamp. My life was still small on paper. Warehouse job. 1 bedroom, weekend runs, Netflix. Simple. But now there was a door next to mine that I could open without breaking it. A woman on the other side who did not want to wait alone in a storm anymore. My name is Ryan. I am 25. I once broke down my neighbor's door because I was scared she would not get up. Now she has given me a key, looked me straight in the eyes, and said, "So you do not have to next time." And that felt like the start of something I never knew I was waiting for.